Welcome to the Coach V Show, and we are going to be featuring podcaster, empowerment coach, and motivational speaker, Deslynn. She's coming in from the 808, where she is going to be talking about her message to the world is that you, friends and family, are predestined to be here. Here on the Coach V Show, your Hollywood radio show for personal development, powered by Island City, where the beach meets the streets, and right here, every Minor Motivation Monday, where iron sharpens iron. Together, we rise. And now, a word from our sponsor.
Say, for things to change, say, I must change. Say, if I don't change, say, nothing changes. Say, if I do change, say, everything changes. Who's ready to get better?
Look for in all you guys is a champion. The three main things that we try to go by is character, choices, and champions.
What it is that you, me, and we do for ourselves brings progress. What we do for others brings fulfillment, and what we do in both earns success.
You are now tuned in to the Coach V Show.
Welcome to the Coach V Show, your Hollywood radio show for personal development with expert insights and interviews to help you, me, and we work to be our best and live our best life. Offering for your consideration the success frameworks, behavioral models, and life lessons that, should you find it appropriate, that you deploy all over your life, leadership, and business. In that, we are going to keep this show rolling, as we all have all year, with our guest from Hawaii in the 808, Miss Deslynn Jaquias, is the owner of Kauai Girl and Healing with Aloha brands. She is a motivational speaker, podcaster, and an empowerment coach. Born and raised on the island of Kauai, Deslynn is bringing her knowledge and know-how to the public through her Healing with Aloha podcast, one-on-one coaching services, and speaking events. Her resilience was built through letter writing to herself and her best friends, journaling, dancing, and singing, all of which help her to overcome the loss of loved ones, her home through a devastating hurricane, and an unexpected divorce. As a single mother, she believes anyone can heal if they are willing to do the work to release past trauma and move forward without allowing limiting beliefs to stop them. Her favorite jobs include working as the performing arts director for the YMCA and a mentor for the Honolulu Community Action Program, educating teens on HIV and drug use. Her dream is to travel the world and share how it is possible to find hope and heal with aloha, no matter what life throws at you. Coach V Show family and Island City Media family, welcome to the show, your girl from Hawaii and the 808, Deslynn Jaquias. Des, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm grateful to be here. Aloha.
Aloha. Des, let's just jump into it. Let's start with your genesis point. Where were you born? Where are you from? Start to let us know and increase our knowledge of who Deslynn Jaquias is.
Hi guys. So I'm born and raised on the island of Kauai. My father is originally from another island. He's from Hawaii, the big island Hilo. And my mom is originally from Waipahu on Oahu. And they met here, and I was born and raised here. And at the age of 19, I was fortunate to live on Oahu for 10 years, Maui for 3, and Japan. My great-grandparents, on my mom's side, they immigrated from the Philippines. And on my dad's side, my grandfather's from the Philippines, and my grandmother's from Hawaii.
That's awesome. In that, well, what is that? I mean, that's quite some diverse experiences, right? I mean, Hawaii and then also Japan. What are
Yeah.
some of the life lessons early on that you learned as a kid, traveling, being with multiple sides of the families in the 808 and in Japan?
So I traveled between Oahu and the Big Island to go visit like my grandmother. It was good because it's so diverse. I don't know if you've ever been to Hilo, but to me, Hilo
No.
is like a smaller version of Kauai.
Mhm.
It's green and it rains a lot over there. But I just remember like going up to the dirt road and going swimming by Queensbat, and there's an ice, like they call it ice pond, but it's by the ocean and it's cold. And then coming to Kauai, like swimming up in the mountains and then by the beach, it's like, it's just fun. We live life simple. We believe in like my mom's one of 7, my dad's one of 8. And so when we get together, it's like a tribe called Quest. And so a lot of going to sporting events, softball games, going to the beach, and potluck. So we bring our food together. And my grandpa, he and my grandmother, they taught us like family first. And so he really led the way in teaching us about, we come together. It doesn't involve money. It's just about building memories. And so camping and, just stuff like that. That's what we did every year before they passed away.
So family was the heart and the center of it all. Yes.
Yes.
In that is this word here in the mainland. So, your boy's Tongan, but I love me some Hawaii, right? And my wife and I
Yes,
and the kids,
do.
we love Hawaii, right? So, and I love the word ohana, right? And like, I mean, whether you're a tourist or you're from Asia or you're from Mexico or somewhere else, in terms of the continents, man, this is such a universal word. 2 of them, particularly from the 808, we use all over the world, aloha and ohana, but everything is about ohana. Explain, what is it that people that are not from Hawaii, grew up, born and raised in Hawaii, still living in Hawaii, well, what is so like attractive and magnetic about that word ohana?
Ohana means family. It's about you respect one another, and you care about one another. We love being together. For holidays, we even get together. Like we make it a point to be together. Well, except for with the pandemic, but we normally go camping every year. It's about supporting one another for like the important like things like graduations, birthday parties, just going to the park, softball games. Like our family, normally they do softball tournaments, they have their own team,
Right.
And it's just part of us to like, I don't know, like for you, but my cousins are like your first best friends. It's your siblings. It's like, even though it's your cousin, it's like, it's your brother and your sister. And that's just the way our grandparents raised us. So I'm one of 24 and my son is one of 45.
That's awesome. Right. And really just doing life together.
Yes.
When I think of ohana, and really that's the mission for our family. Our mission statement is working to be our best and live our best life wherever we are together, right? And so when I hear the term ohana, it's that I choose to do life with you. Even though my family, my ohana is some freaking dysfunctional ass family. My family, the two of us, some dysfunctional ass family, but we do life together, especially when stuff gets real.
Yes.
Right? So in that, what else would you add about ohana? Anything else before we go to the next subject?
Yeah, I think like the one thing that I appreciate about my grandparents, because I was mostly raised by my mom's parents. My grandfather, he really led the way in how he loved my grandmother. How he respected her. They were married for over 50 years.
Wow.
And he got cancer, but even till the day he couldn't walk, like he would bring her food and her drinks. I'd be like, Papa, like, just relax. It's like, no, that was his life. like, he treated her like a queen, and he loved her with every breath that he took. And it's like, man, like, it was such a great example. And how he loved us. Our grandparents taught us grace and mercy. So, we all make mistakes, but they never made us feel like we're naughty kids. Like, they just loved us. Like, we felt mercy and grace, and that's how we were raised. And I think that's important. When you come across someone who loves you deeply, it teaches you how to love other people. And so my grandparents were that example for us of what a marriage is and how you treat people with respect.
Wow, that's some ohana right there, and aloha. Let's go to the second word, aloha. What does that mean?
So aloha, it's a lot, but it comes from your heart, a desire to see other people do well in life. For some people, they think, oh, it's this big thing. No, it's like smiling,
right?
Shaka, waving. If you see a need, you automatically meet a need. There's no expectation to receive anything from the person. It's just from your heart. It's an action. It's a desire to see other people do well in life.
I love that. Aloha. In that, let's talk about where you grew up. Where particularly are some fond memories that you could offer me, Coach V, and the listening audience, some life lessons in terms of what, excuse me, elementary school you went to, what junior high you went to, what high school. Let's start with elementary school and some life lessons from there.
So I went to Kauai Elementary School. I don't really remember, because what happened was when I was in second grade, the island got hit by a hurricane when I was in second grade. And it was so severe that our house, the roof collapsed. And so we became homeless. But because we had family, we were able to transition. So we had to move from Kauai to Lihue. And then for the most part, we were in Honolulu. Honolulu is mostly immigrants. So like back in the day, people, they used to have camps for people who work in like the sugarcane field and whatnot. So by the time I moved there, that side was no longer, it's just regular houses and whatnot. But yeah, so I was mostly raised in Honolulu. Back in the 70s and 80s, we had a reputation, like if you weren't, how do you say, if you're Caucasian, you don't want to be in that area because it's mostly people of color, like Filipinos and Hawaiians and whatnot. But to me, I had a great time because I'm mixed race, and we used to walk up the store to go 7-Eleven and just the simple things in life, ride the bike. Back in the day when we actually played outside till the light went off, and when the light turns on, that's your signal, you gotta go home.
Go home, yeah.
So I went to Wilcox Elementary. When I switched from Kauai to Wilcox, I don't look like the typical kid at that school. So I have curly hair and I'm mixed race. I don't look like anybody at that school. And so I dealt with a lot of teasing, a lot of bullying. And so I just didn't feel like I belonged until I went from Wilcox. I went to Kauai. Back then it had the middle school, the intermediate side. And then when you go to middle school, it infuses you with other schools. And then finally I got accepted for looking different and stuff like that. So while I was at Kauai High School, that's when I got into cheerleading. I became a band geek. I used to play the flute. I also was a track and field. I was a sprinter. I did a lot of clubs. I love the school because my teachers don't realize it to this day, but they were like, to me, in Hawaii, we say hanai, which is like adopting. Yeah. And so they don't realize, but their kindness and their love, my coaches, like I just felt like they went the extra mile to make sure the kids did well. And I always think back and thought, gosh, what made me stay on a certain path? Because I grew up around people who did struggle with substance abuse, who struggle with alcoholism, who dealt with incarceration. I dealt with that on a personal side. But my teachers, they were always there. They were my coaches, and their kindness and their love to me, was a buffer. And I never did drugs in high school, but I feel like having great role models people who, to me, they didn't realize they're like an uncle or auntie to me. I think that's what inspired me to keep going and to pursue my education, because nobody in my family had gone to college. I'm the first to graduate a bachelor's degree on both sides. And so, yeah.
So in that elementary school, you didn't look like anyone else. You dealt with at a very early age, losing everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in that losing everything, and really a dramatic experience as a child, and then having to leave your comfort zone at a very earlier age to go to a place where there's not a lot of people that look like you. What was the life lessons from that, Des?
I had to learn to be confident in who I am. I used to feel ashamed of who I was. I hated looking the way I looked. I didn't like being told that I was ugly because of my nose and my hair. They said I look like Medusa. I had to learn to not care what people think. And I had to learn to find what I loved and lean into it, which was dancing. You know, I had to focus more on what made me happy instead of what people didn't like about me.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. So you were able to face that head on, the bullying, being told certain things. I mean, the things it is that little kids say, which I don't blame the kids. They get it from their
We learned it.
parents.
Yeah.
You know, they learned it from modeling somewhere. But in that, you were able to move forward and progress. So talk about junior high, high school. What neighborhoods, what sides of the island were you, and what junior highs and high schools you went to?
So I went to Kauai High School, Red Raiders, whoop, whoop. There's only 3 public high schools on Kauai. So you know, like from the first 2 games, who's gonna win or lose for each season.
Right.
Yeah, so you already know. So I went to Kauai High, and I became a cheerleader early on when I was a sophomore, and we had to compete every year. For cheerleading, we had to go onto another Hawaiian island, Oahu. You know, there's Oahu, right?
Mm-hmm.
And on that island, that's where we do like this dynamic cheerleading association. We learn how to compete against, learn all the cheers and chants, but you still have to compete against other schools. And so every year we go. Well, so my sophomore year, I was still learning new. When my junior, senior year, I became the choreographer. So I did the dance and the cheer choreography so that we compete. What I learned while I was a cheerleader is, learn how to be a leader, because when you know your team's gonna lose, you still have to be at 100 in cheering.
Right.
And it wasn't easy because you're like, oh my gosh, and so I learned a lot about leadership through cheerleading, because it's about encouraging. It's about getting the crowd to be involved, even if the team isn't winning. That's what I learned the most. I love being at my school because it's like we're like family. My classmates, we're small. I don't know about you, but when I graduated, we were the biggest, and it was 236.
Right. That's right. That's a small class in comparison to the rest of the nation.
Yeah, and so
most public high schools, most.
And so so back then the intermediate was connected to the high school, but now it's so big that it's a middle school. It's separate from that school. But yeah, so there's 3 high schools, and when I was when it was my summer going into my senior year, a second hurricane hit, Hurricane Iniki hit. So it was a 10-year gap. 1992, the second hurricane hit. And fortunately, like our house stayed intact, the one that we lived in, but it really devastated the island because it was actually worse than the first one when I was in 2nd grade. And so it's hard right now with the pandemic, but both hurricanes, we went without electricity and running water.
Right.
I remember taking a shower by the stadium. There's like a football stadium. I remember taking a shower down by the beach, because we just didn't have any running water, and that's just how it is. You know what I mean? And so I learned early on, after being in 2 hurricanes, that to be grateful, because things come up, natural disasters happen, and you just got to roll with it. Like you can't prevent it. You just got to roll with it and just I don't know, with everything we're going through, I'm like, I've gone without electricity and running water. I'm grateful to have electricity, you know. I'm like, everybody's blessed. I mean, there's a lot of things going on, but the mentality is like, I'm just grateful, you know what I mean? Because I've been.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. So now high school, gratitude, and knowing you're going to lose, but you're really shooting for excellence anyway, right?
Yes.
I think that's a hard thing for a lot of folks to like figure out, and rightfully so, because human reaction is what it is. And so from there, you said you were the first to go to college and all that. What came next, Des?
So I'm from this island, but I moved away when I was 19. I moved to Oahu, which is like where the state capital is, Honolulu. So my first language is Pidgin English. It's not English. So I speak the way I talk. It's kind of like Ebonics or Spanglish. It's a mixture of languages. And so I was getting slaughtered while I lived over there because people didn't understand Pidgin English. And so I had to learn. I feel like I confidently could speak English properly, proper English grammar, maybe when I was like 19, 20.
Mm.
And I was a national honor student, okay, guys, but I still, for some reason, people couldn't understand me because when I get excited, I speak Pidgin English. But even though I'm in Hawaii, not everybody in the business sector in townside understand. So I have to learn to speak English. And so I lived on Oahu for about a year, went on a church mission team to help start the campus ministry on Maui. And I was there for almost 3 years, moved back to Oahu. I was still in the same church and I served in leadership for a total of 10 years. So I worked with the teens ministry, singles ministry, campus ministry. And then I got married. My husband and I had our son. We moved to Japan. And that's how I ended up in Japan, is because my ex-husband worked for the Navy. And so it was a great experience as far as like, you don't realize how special living here is until you go and you only see one rainbow and you're like, oh, this is not normal. And so I really appreciated being from where I'm from, but it took me having to leave to realize that. And so, yeah.
So in that perspective, yeah, you gain some perspective. You don't really know the value of what's right in front of you or where it is that you are until you go somewhere and the things it is that you value are not there or not evident, right? So
Yes.
Talk more about perspective, because I know you've been around my neighborhood of the 916, right? And in comparison, how it is that you were drawn back home to the 808.
Until you go somewhere you don't know anybody, you don't realize how blessed you are until you're somewhere you don't feel like you belong. You know, I didn't speak Japanese, so I had to learn like the basic, like excuse me, thank you, and whatnot. It was kind of scary and intimidating initially because people kind of shy away from you because you're not like a Japanese national. But I had to learn to adapt and to be confident, even making friends with people on the military base. I lived off base in a Japanese neighborhood. I was so happy to be on base. I was like, oh, yay, it's Americans. But because everybody comes from different cultures, different states, some people, they're just not trusting of you, right? Because they're not, I'm like Miss Aloha, like, what's up, everybody?
Yeah,
you know, and people are like that, even though they're American, they don't know me from nothing, you know? So I'm over here trying to be friendly, but they're kind of like standoffish. And so I was fortunate to make friends with wives, Navy wives. And till this day, they're still my friends through social media. But a lot of what I learned while being in a foreign country is you have to take initiative and you can't be afraid. I took my baby on the train, and it's all in kanji, like how to Japanese kanji. I had to figure out colors to travel on the train. I had to figure out what colors I write to go back home. And so,
that was, so So sometimes you ever get lost? How many times you got lost out there? Because I know I get lost.
I was on this one train and it was the right color, but it stopped. And I was like, what's going on? So I went back and it stopped again. And I found out that it's the right one, but it stops at a certain point. So I have to get on the next train to go all the way to where I'm from.
Yeah.
But I don't speak Japanese. Well, I only speak Squashi. But yeah, so a lot of it is just being humble, and they know you just point, to communicate, you just point and do the best that you can.
Yeah. And in that, isn't it amazing how in so many of my life experiences, especially to places where I travel, it's only by getting lost that you figure out where it is that you are and where you need to go and how to get there. And that always, once you finally figure it out, you're no longer going to be there anymore. What's the truth on that?
Yeah.
Come on, Des. Is that some real talk or what?
Yes, because okay, for us to travel between where I live to Tokyo, it's an hour and a half, right, one way. And so what I used to do is sometimes we would walk to the train station and then catch the bus, then walk to the train station and then get off and then walk all the way into Tokyo City. Mm-hmm. And so try to navigate. Have you ever been? So Tokyo, on a Sunday, there's over 400 people crossing the street at the same time.
Wow. No, I've never been. Never been.
Family, yes. Yeah. And they don't care if you have a baby stroller. So I used to have to put my son in a baby carrier because when I'm pushing him in the crowd, they don't care. Like everybody's going all at once.
Right.
And it's called Shibuya. It's like the busiest station. Yeah. So when I finally figured out, I ended up going church on base. When you finally figure out, it's like, you know what I mean? I ended up coming home. I kind of got used to everything, but my husband and I, we ended up breaking up. And it happened while we're on vacation in Sacramento.
In the 916?
Yes, the 916. And so unfortunately, things were happening prior to my son being born. Then my son came, and then while we're there, then, he notified me that he wanted a divorce. So rather than me fly back to Japan from Cali, I went straight to Hawaii and I never looked back. Right. And so I started all over again. Yeah.
Wow. So I talk about often in which the crowd just starts to laugh. I go, so how many people out there are single? And I start with this saying, right? Life is struggle, struggle is life, misery is optional. And then people start cracking up because I'm like, because if you're single, life's struggle.
But if you're married, there's struggles too.
It's like, but single folks, don't you worry. We got some real struggle waiting for your ass on this side over here, right? And everybody starts cracking up. But really, there's so many things about relationships, but one of them that is real struggle is the end of something. But I also talk about how to every end, there is a new beginning, and to every new beginning, there's an end. And it's this ongoing infinity sign that I just have really, I just adopted it into my logos, into what I do in terms of empowerment, that things do really go round and round. They go back and forth, the seasons and life. But you can't go backwards, but you can find a way to create something new, to create different lives and all that. How hard was it for you, and share with the audience, for any listeners that might be listening that's going through a divorce, and what are some of the life lessons and behavioral models and success frameworks to move forward from a divorce? Des, please help us.
So when you're going through, when you're separated, it's not easy, because the best way my sister explained it to me is you're grieving the loss of your best friend, or who you thought was your best friend. And so you're used to being in a relationship with someone. You've learned how to, you have, your habits. You're used to being around that person, and all of a sudden it's like they're gone. And so it's like you lose someone, but they're still alive, and it hurts because you're not able to fix it and repair it. You know, you want to, as much as you want to, you can't. And that pain, it's hard for me. I actually had to get therapy because there's things in that relationship that was really painful for me, and I needed help to process the pain. But I think if you're going through a divorce, to understand that you're not the only one, and that other people, I don't think most people, I would think when you get married, there's no intentions to get divorced. And so when it happens, it's you're starting all over again from ground zero. But I can tell you, it's been 12 years, that sometimes letting go is allowing you to open up yourself to what was meant for you, that is so much greater than what you were holding on to. And so it's gonna hurt, but like cry, allow yourself to feel the pain instead of trying to numb out and do things like drugs, drinking, or, you know, like jumping into another relationship. But really allow yourself to process what happened and get back to loving yourself. Because I didn't know who I was when I got separated and divorced. I was scared because I was a stay-at-home mom and I had zero to my name. And so I had to start from ground zero. And thankfully I had family, but I didn't know, I never intended to become a single mom. I wanted my son to have two parents, and my son was 2.5 years old. And it wasn't easy, but what I learned from my son is he never once cried. Like I was crying like, oh, he's gonna have one parent. And my son was just joyful the whole time. And so what I learned is that life happens and it doesn't always happen the way you want it, but you choose your attitude towards it. And so what I had to learn was that my son wasn't crying over his life. He was enjoying life. And so I had to catch up to my son, you know, and God really taught me that through my son, because I just felt like, man, if it's not one thing, it's another thing, you know what I mean? And I learned a lot of grace, and I learned a lot from my son, how to embrace life, even when life doesn't go the way you planned, you know, and that is the one thing I can say. My son is 14 and he's confident. I co-parent with my ex-husband and we're friends, and I love his new wife. But everything doesn't always go the way we plan. I think sometimes watching movies actually damage us. You know, everyone wants a happy ending, but a relationship involves commitment and respect and communication. If you don't have respect, then you're not going to be able to communicate, and you're not going to be able to be committed in your communication. And that's why you have to be friends with the person you're going to commit your life to. Because the hard times are going to come when you're married, okay? It's going to come. And so if you guys are friends, you guys can weather the storm together.
Yeah, I love that. So I think, and I believe my wife would agree with me. I got to get her on the show sometime and talk about this.
Yes!
It's just really, because I always think that it's compromise to me in terms of what has made our marriage what it is. And that in spite of our differences, in spite of all the selfishness, and in spite of what she wants and what I want, somewhere along the way, you figure out that it's not about you and it's about us.
Yes.
And it's really interesting, right? At least for me, in terms of my experience, and you could tell me how it is that you really coach and you go through therapy for the ladies that reach out to you about being a single mom. But I really do feel that, you know, when we got married, I figured out that it wasn't about me at some point, because men are not like women. We don't have that women's intuition. I feel actually women don't plug into women's intuition as much as they should, right? But that's just from a man's perspective. Is because women need to trust that, right? When I have clients that are women talk about what it is that they feel, I'm like, you should trust that and you should go with it. and then live with the consequences. Men's intuition is more like, to me, it's like our secondary reaction to everything is anger, frustration, anger, hungry, hangry, right? And then anything, confusion, lost, there's some kind of anger in there. But I did get older, but I didn't always mature. And I really feel that even though my wife is younger than me, I think she was a lot more mature level than I ever was when I first met her. And I still feel like that sometimes today. It's like, man, I gotta mature up. She's already got 2 kids. She doesn't need a third one. That's her husband.
Good idea.
Right? And then so in that is this compromise of, sometimes it's really interesting between our communication. It's like sometimes she cares about something and I really don't care about it. I'm just like, babe, do what you want. But then I get this men's intuition because now, at 45 years old, you get to this level of awareness.
Which is good. That's the start.
By screwing up so many times and, causing more drama than I should so many times. And just be like, oh, wait a minute. So this matters to you, what I want.
Yes. Even if she would do what she wants.
Yeah. And in your 30s, right, you feel like that's what she wants, is just to let her do what she wants. But that's not what she wants. There are times that I care about what she feels and we talk it through it. And we engage and we compromise on what's best for us. Because when I got married, I felt like it wasn't about me. And then when we were married and had one child, I was like, man, it's really not about me anymore. But that takes a level of unselfishness and gratitude and awareness, right? Balance, yeah. And then we had a boy and a girl now. We had 2 kids. My wife is driving back to work after her six-month leave. She's like crying. Oh. You know what I mean? And Junior's like, 6-7 months old. And then, so she's crying, driving, going back to work. And I got a 2.5-year-old and a 6-month in the driveway. I'm fucking crying too. I'm crying. I'm like, oh my gosh, what the hell am I gonna do right now? Right. So it's just so intriguing. But the life experiences of like the time and the belief and the investment in one another is just like, no, this thing, we got to keep this thing rolling. We got to figure out how to make it better. So in that, how do you counsel and or do therapy with women? Share with us about, hey, are they in a wrong relationship? Because to me, it's very easy, right? If you're in an abusive relationship, get out. Everything else is kind of like, from a man's perspective, it's like, you kind of figure this out. You look at the kids, right? I mean, you're looking at all that, and that becomes the burden for parents when they split, because you're looking at all these things, but you're not, right? All of the things that you need to factor into this equation, but ultimately one or both of the couples feel like this ultimately is not good for me.
Yes.
Right. And in some way, shape, or form. And I don't know it because I've never gone through it. And for anybody that's experiencing this or going through divorce or have been divorced, I'm not trying to tell you how you feel. That's not my style. I'm just trying to say from my perspective. But we have an expert here. Expert, talk to us about like how do you approach all of that? How do you approach all of that?
So I've helped. I'm coaching somebody who is married. And so when I hear communication between her and her husband, demanding, explain to her from someone who's divorced. I said, I explained to her being appreciative of her husband because of everything that he does do for her, and that to show more appreciation, because it's easy to take it for granted. That you have. And the reason why my perspective really changed is I have a podcast, and I've interviewed people who are widows, who've lost, right? Yeah. And so when I'm talking to, I was like, so I'm not trying to judge, but you might want to consider, because I've talked to women who have no husband. And then here's your husband, he does everything for you, but then he did one thing wrong and it's blown up, into something huge, and so teaching her how to show more gratitude and grace towards her husband, because I guess it's been like that for so long, like, upset or whatever, is like trying to express her, like show like appreciation, because her husband really loves her a lot. And then when you're helping women who are in dating relationships, but then it's a toxic relationship, you cannot tell them what to do, but you have to be supportive and ask questions, like the right questions for them to become aware of their worth, their self-worth. Because when you're dealing with someone who's in a toxic relationship, like there's abuse, or there's physical abuse and whatnot, you don't want to put them in a position where they become unsafe. Like as much as you and I would be like, oh my gosh, get out of that relationship, it's not good.
That's right.
Sometimes people financially, they're not in a position to move.
Yeah, real talk.
Yeah, and so you cannot really side, because if you tell them, oh, go, and then they decide to stay with the person, right, then you lose that relationship. And so you have to be supportive and loving and make sure they're okay without judging. Because for women, our intuition tells us a lot of the times, like, you deserve better, but then if you grew up being around a father who wasn't loving to your mom or to you,
right,
you carry on that. See, hold on just a second.
That's okay. Is that your son? Hey, what's up? Who's that? What's up? Hi, welcome to the Coach V Show.
Our house, we watch her.
No,
yeah, and so that's, well, she's good about being on lives. Yeah, and so what was I talking about? Shujitro. So like that is like the biggest thing is when you're working with women, you have to be patient and you have to be kind, because if they're used to being around men early on as a child and to teen and whatnot, it's comfortable being around someone who's harsh, or even though it hurts,
right,
so like to the point that it's really bad, you won't want to leave that relationship.
Yeah, it becomes their norm. This is just their norm.
And right? I grew up around seeing someone like that, and so I realized that I kept attracting people who are emotionally unavailable. And so the biggest thing with women is listening and being a support and helping them to come to an understanding of what they deserve without telling them directly, like, girl, get out of that relationship, because then they feel judged and they don't feel safe, because it takes a lot to admit you're in a bad relationship.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love the fact that you're talking about really leading the client or the mentee or the person that you're trying to assist or help because they asked for it, right?
Yes.
Because I love being around like these older generation folks that were born in the 40s and in the 50s, because they really have this wisdom, right? So especially if you have a PhD or something like that and you're at a family party or at a party, I go sit next to these folks and I just ask questions. So one gentleman in particular, he's a UCLA psychologist, a clinical therapist. I mean, he's been through it. He's been retired now for 20 plus years. The dude is very wealthy. He drives a motorhome that's $1.25 million. I mean, that's the motorhome, not counting his house and all that stuff, right? So multiple properties all over America. So when I go to these parties or these engagements, I sit next to this cat and I'm just like, so talk to me about trying to lead someone, because an empowerer leads someone in a certain path and then make sure that they are aware of their options.
Yes.
But then they have to choose.
Yes.
And I've already known that's the way that I wanted to coach. That's the way I want to parent. That's the way that I want to interact and engage with my wife. Is like, hey, I would just ask that you consider this, but this is my thoughts.
Right? No, I love the way you say it like that, because you're not judging.
Yeah, it's one, non-judgmental, and then two, it's like empowering allows the person and the individual to raise their level of awareness and impact positively how they think, feel, and do things, how they see things, and how they say things, right? So when you do that, and then you point out, hey, what do you think your options are here? Then they lead themselves and empower themselves versus being entitled and trying to tell somebody what they do. And then the first person they blame is you.
Exactly.
You told them to do
don't want to
something.
put yourself in that position.
and then really people need to be accountable for their own decision. But then, so then you have to coach, or what my guy, Dr. James Andrews, you know, he's a Florida State guy. And he's got his every degree under the sun from UCLA. And he's been in therapy and psychology forever, right? And he goes, man, that's a great way to approach it. So I always am asking questions like that, right? So as we talk about, like, how do you keep a client or a person, a woman, or even a husband that is going through some things to know that they are fully in charge of their life, that they're accountable for their life, and that should they change, then everything starts to change for them? How do you approach that?
With humility and respect, and ask them, like, what do you think?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so you think this? Okay, because a lot of it is, I know, like, we talk about this, it's people's values.
Yep.
They learn a lot of their lifestyle, their habits, right? And so you come in and you're telling them how to be, like, that's not going to jive. And so a lot of it is asking questions and listening. Because a lot of times people have the answers within them, but they're not willing to do what they know they need to do because of fear, right? Because, like, if you're talking about a relationship, as much as people know that this relationship isn't good for them, they fear being alone.
Say that again, Des, say that again.
So sometimes people stay in bad relationships because they fear being alone. And so they'd rather just stay around because the idea of someone loving them, liking them, wanting being with them, it seems more comforting, it seems better than if they're alone and they have to start all over again. You know, but so, you know, a lot of times people are like, I got divorced and I found the one. Like, I'm still single and I'm happy and my son is happy. I'm not against love. Okay, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But I think getting back to who you are, it is scary, but your ability to like and love yourself, that is like the longest relationship you're going to ever have.
Oh, Des, say that again. Say that again, Des.
Your relationship with yourself is the longest relationship you're going to ever have. So you have to be able to look in the mirror and like and love yourself, because regardless if people like or love you, you have to like or love you. They don't have to define you. People are not going to like you, but like my mom said, the world doesn't rotate around you. You know what I mean? But your ability to like and love yourself is the best thing, because people are not going to like when you make changes in your family, your friends and whatnot. But if you're at peace and you like what you're about to do and you do what you love, you'll be cool with it. You'll be like, okay, cool. Like, it's okay, because I don't need your acceptance or approval to do what I'm about to do.
I like that. I love that. I love that. In that, Des, let's go over what is Deslynn Jaquias, what is your message to the world?
My message to you is that we're all predestined to be here. That your higher power, like for me, it's God, like you're predestined to be here. Regardless how you were brought into this world, you're predestined to be here, and that your existence will always matter. And your story, you telling your story gives someone permission to do the same. And that sometimes we can feel shame about what we've been through. But what I tell people is, if you've gone through hard times, like like I'm a domestic violence survivor. I'm a suicide survivor. I have to get therapy for PTSD. If you go through all this stuff, you're just more relatable. Like if you just look at it like I'm just more relatable, that when I come to you, I can't judge you because I've been through so much that I don't desire to bring pain into your life. I just want you to feel loved. And if you lead your life with love and aloha, regardless if people think badly of you, you know in your heart that you're leading with love. You have the opportunity to change someone's life, and they can change the next one. And so just remember you're predestined to be here and that you can heal. But it's going to take time, and it's not going to be like overnight. It could be the rest of your life. I feel like I'm a sloth when it comes to change, but slow is still progress.
That's right. That's right. I love that. That's great. That's a great message. Predestined. You, me, and we, all of us are predestined to be here. In that, you talked about your podcast. You have a couple of brands. Talk about what your projects are that you need us to look up, to check in. How do we connect with you? All of that.
So my sister passed away. She was in a vehicle accident back in 2001, 11 days after the September 11 event in the US. In order for me to cope with the grief, I started writing her letters, journaling, Dear Kiala, writing to my sister. So I'm in the process of self-publishing my first book. And I decided to do a short series, so I'm going to do multiple books because 20 years ago, who I was and who I am now is totally different. And so I'm going to do short books because I noticed there's transformation in my writing to my sister. I just wanted to communicate to her what was going on in our lives because I really missed her. And so the letter writing was healing for me. And it was my way of feeling like she was still involved in our lives, even though it felt like it was one-sided, but to me, that was my way. So I'm going to write a book. It wasn't easy. I was crying when I was looking at it, because when you look at what you journal about, you really get to see who you are. And it wasn't easy. And so I'm going to get that done by next month. So I'm working on publishing my first book. Karen Gibson is my editor. And so I'm going to have that. And
title of the book. What's the title of the book?
It's going to be Letters to My Sister Kiala.
I love that. Letters
and then next one, I'm going to be doing a workshop with Ricky. He's on our team with Coach V. Lacarte. We're going to work on doing a workshop about the power of you, because we're both background in motivational speaking. And so we're going to be doing a workshop. I'm in Hawaii, and so we're going to do Zoom. We're going to do a workshop together.
Yep. So how can people get a hold of you and figure out what you and Ricky, shout out to Ricky Lacorte. He's on the Coach V team that we're just about to launch, and to what you guys are going to be doing. How do people get a hold of you so they can get the link to get to that workshop? How much does it cost? How do we subscribe? How do we do all that?
So the best way to get a hold of me is Deslynn at healingwithaloha.today. I'm on Instagram and I'm on TikTok as the Deslynn Jaquias. If you want to listen to my podcast, it's on Apple and Spotify and Google Podcasts. It's called Healing with Aloha. I also wanted to share that I'm also Mello decided she wanted to do a group to help parents, and so Karen and I joined on with Mello. And so we have a group called Aloha Mindset Parenting. So every Thursdays we go live on Zoom, I believe at 10:30. And then also we have a
AM or PM?
In the morning, AM. Hawaii
AM, time. So Hawaii time. So that is So 10:30 a.m. So that's 1:30 here in Cali.
California.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we go live. The reason why we decided to do that is because we felt like parents needed a support group. Karen has been an educator for 27 years. Mello has been a therapist for 10 years. My background is working with youth, prevention, intervention, and treatment. I work with kids who are troubled youth, who were incarcerated, who were at the mental health like detention homes. And so together, we just wanted to be a support to parents. And so that's why it's called the Aloha Mindset Parenting. So you can find that on Facebook also. And it's free. It's all free because we believe that we don't ever want parents to feel like they don't have the support that we need. And, you know, they've worked with people with children with autism and special needs. And so we just want to empower the parents.
Man, we're like shouting out half the Coach V Empower team.
Yes.
Right? What's up, Empower team? Shout out to Mello. Shout out to Karen. Man, that's just awesome. And it's what's amazing is before we even agreed to be on the same team, we scheduled this show, right?
Yes,
before we even talked about that. I just find that, you know, iron sharpens iron, together we rise. Really happy that all of you are just collaborating and doing some things to really impact and empower the world. Shout out to Ricky as well.
I want to shout out to Alan Lainoholo because he's the reason I found you.
Yeah. Shout out
to all of us connected to you.
Alan Lainoholo. Shout out to my boy Siti out in Fiji who runs the Fiji market, and then also shout out to my boy Kalani over in Oahu, who really makes up the Team Empower team. Everybody here on the Coach V show is going to really learn who everybody is slowly. But the irony, right, that Alan linked us up maybe 6 weeks ago or something like that. And I was like, man,
it's been a journey.
You got quite a story. I think we need to tell this story before you even joined the Empower team with us. So we really appreciate you. In that, what are some shout outs? So I'm shouting out the Coach V Empower team worldwide. What's up? Here on the Coach V show. That wasn't our intention, but I mean, you started bringing up everybody you're collaborating.
You're like, wait a minute, that's the team.
That's our team. I love that. That's awesome.
So I wanted to shout out to my mom, Bernie. She's the best mom. She did a good job in raising us to be the best version of ourselves. Shout out to my dad, Harlan. He's a 49ers fan. I don't know if that's what your mom's a Redskins fan. Shout out to my parents. And I wanted to shout out to my brother, Kaifo, because he's the best brother, more like a dad to me, and my older sister, Jody. And then, of course, I can't forget my son, Daniel Kainoa. He is probably been the biggest inspiration as to why I am who I am today. And yeah, and Karen and Mello, Alan Miafua, Alan Lainoholo, Cherise Ferreira, and just my family. I am who I am because I feel that the love, the support I've had has allowed me to be who I am today.
That is awesome. So shout out to all those folks. Shout out to the entire Ohana one more time for the Coach V Empower team. Like, man, we're talking about all of us and the public. We haven't even rolled out to the public yet, but here we are. Here we are over the Hollywood radio waves, via the Dash Radio app here on Island City Media Group. And then there's more to come on that about just really our outreach and our conferences in the future and what it is that we're rolling out. Should you find that there's some value there, but there's so much that Des, Mello, and Karen are doing. Please reach out to her. Say your email again, Deslynn.
Sure. It's Deslynn, DESLYNN @healingwithaloha.today.
Today. Very good. In that, Des, if I was to say a few things, and you love this poem, right? And where it says that, you know, as you really empower and change and do what it is that really sets your soul on fire, you automatically give permission to others to do the same. by that poem by Marianne Williamson, right? When I say that, and you've heard me say it on group sessions and when we're coaching and people worldwide on our Zoom calls, what are your thoughts on that, Des?
I think our deepest fear, when we understand and love who we are and what we are meant to be, we shine. And in shine, like it goes against our culture because we're told to be humble.
Mm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know? So Polynesian culture and the Asian culture is to be humble. But God says to shine his light, his love, so that we give other people permission to shine. I believe in the power of one. If you just focus on showing kindness and aloha to one person every day, that you change the world. Because if you make that person feel loved, then they'll love the next person. And then it's a ripple effect. And so don't fear loving people. So if you look at it like shining is just exuding love and aloha, then it takes away that you're trying to go against culture and being humble. You can love, yes, you can love. And when you shine your love, you vibrate into the world and make the world a better place.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. What about this Coach V quote? There's money in the transaction, but the wealth is in the relationships. Here on the Coach V hot seat, what's your thoughts on that?
You can do great things, but people remember how you made them feel. Yeah, because Marianne, what's her name? My favorite, oh gosh, I can't think of her name right now. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. She's the poet.
Yes.
Yeah. I forgot her name offhand too.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay.
But yeah, so that's what she said. You know, people won't care about the things you do, but they'll remember how you made them feel. Mm-hmm. And so there's nothing wrong with making money. We need money to survive, but ultimately people remember how you treated them.
And that's a great way to build relationships. And last one, you just already heard me say it about marriage, about life, leadership, right? Life is struggle, struggle is life, misery is optional. What are your thoughts on that, Des?
You decide your attitude about what happens to you. I've been through a lot. Like I survived domestic violence, I survived suicide, and I just choose to advocate. So I became an advocate. So you can allow your experiences to give you the ability to help the next one. And so you choose your attitude towards life, and nobody's perfect. And when you realize that nobody's perfect, then it gives you hope.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Des. And Des' message to the world, again, predestined. You, me, and we. You are predestined to be here. Love yourself because you are going to have the longest relationship with yourself more than any other relationship that you have with anyone else.
Yep.
Be all about Ohana, right? This is the Des with the sayings, right? And this is her focus, right? So thank you so much, Des, for coming on the Coach V Show. On behalf of everybody here at Island City, man, we applaud you for your example. I am fortunate that you're on my team on the business ventures, right? But again, it's really ironic how I met you, and we decided to book you for a date for a show like weeks, a month and a half later. In between there, you know, we start talking and getting on a couple of Zoom calls, and then all of a sudden I'm like, hey, what would you think about? And then so we are where we are right now. But to everybody out there, please take heed. And if this is something it is that you need, please reach out to Deslynn. One more time, Deslynn, your email?
Oh, Deslynn at healingwithaloha.today, TODAY.
.today. So one more time, that is Deslynn at healingwithaloha.today. Today, reach out to her, get some thoughts.
Guys, reach out to me.
Yeah, get some thoughts about how her and this really power group of 808 women are really trying to advocate for what it is that is needed for women's empowerment, for family empowerment, for aloha in the world, and smiling and giving love to one person it is that you meet each and every day. So thank you all for joining in and listening here on the Coach V Show every Motivation Monday here, powered by Island City, where the beach meets the streets. And I just want to thank everybody on behalf of myself and Des, because really the reason why you listen to this show is just not for the sake of success, but for the sake of being your best. In doing so, you realize the best of your abilities and that everything and anything that you dream and work for can be achieved. This is how Des and your boy Coach V lives, all about faith and family. Grateful for God's amazing grace. Until next time, thank you everybody out there all across the Pacific, all the way to Germany, listening on the Dash Radio app, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and then you can catch us here every Motivation Monday on Facebook Live, powered, produced, and edited by Island City, your Hollywood radio show for personal development, the Coach V Show, here every Motivation Monday. From your girl Des, your boy V. Until next time, one love, mad respects, live it. Peace.
Mahalo, guys.